Earth, Thraxius said, dragging the name out as if tasting something bitter. Your species stands at the crossroads of destiny. The Galactic Empire has deemed your planet adequate for integration. In exchange for your submission, we will grant you protection, access to our knowledge, and the privilege of servitude under the Emperor's banner. Refusal, however, will bring annihilation. The ultimatum hung in the air. Ambassador Tom Garfield shifted in his seat, his expression a mask of calm that betrayed nothing of the storm brewing within. Adequate, he echoed, his voice smooth but with a razor's edge. Your empire sends its emissary to belittle humanity, to demand tribute, and expects compliance? You must not know us very well. A murmur rippled through the room, the gathered diplomats and military leaders exchanging nervous glances. Thraxius's lipless mouth twisted into what might have been a grin. Know you, the alien sneered. We know your history. Petty wars, divisions, primitive weapons. You are a speck of dust in the cosmic wind, and we are the storm that sweeps it away. Choose wisely, Earthling. Tom Garfield rose, his 6-foot frame lean, but commanding. His silver-streaked hair and piercing blue eyes gave him an air of authority that demanded attention. He gestured toward Admiral John Harrigan, seated at the edge of the long table. Admiral Harrigan, Garfield said, his voice steady. How many starships does the Earth fleet currently maintain? Harrigan, a grizzled man with the posture of a battle-hardened soldier, met Garfield's gaze without flinching. 85, he replied, with an additional 30 in dry dock undergoing upgrades, all equipped with quantum jump capabilities and energy displacement shielding. Thraxius tilted his head, an expression of curiosity and mild amusement. Do you intend to boast of your meager armada, Ambassador? Such numbers are but a fraction of the Empire's fleet. Garfield's lips curved into a tight smile. It's not about the numbers, Imperator. It's about resolve. The resolve of a species that has clawed its way out of extinction time and again. You demand tribute? We offer you something better. An introduction to human ingenuity. The room stiffened as Garfield turned fully toward Thraxius. You have underestimated us, and in doing so, you've made your first mistake. Thraxius's amusement vanished, replaced by a flicker of irritation. He loomed closer, his shadow swallowing Garfield. This defiance will cost you dearly. Earth will burn, and its ashes will fuel the Empire's engines. Before Garfield could respond, Dr. Eli Joseph interjected, his voice sharp and deliberate. Imperator, you failed to calculate the unpredictability of your target. The chief scientist's interruption turned heads. Joseph was a wiry figure, his eyes constantly scanning, processing, analyzing. While not a soldier, he wielded a mind that had revolutionized Earth's military capabilities. What is this drivel? Thraxius growled, focusing his predatory gaze on Joseph. It's a warning, Joseph said, unflinching. Humanity thrives under pressure. Our technology has reached levels that your empire may not fully comprehend. Should you choose war, you will face weapons that rewrite the rules of combat, strategies forged in desperation, and a species that refuses to go quietly, a beat of silence. Then Thraxius laughed, a hollow, metallic sound. Empty threats from an inferior race. Very well, Earthlings, you have chosen death. He raised a clawed hand, and a holographic projection of the Empire's fleet appeared in the center of the room. Thousands of ships formed an endless armada, with a massive dreadnought at its center. Your resistance will be a fleeting annoyance, Thraxius said, his voice dripping with malice. The fleet arrives in 20 solar days. Prepare your surrender or your funeral pyre. With that, the Imperator dissolved into shimmering particles of green light, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. Garfield exhaled slowly, the weight of the moment pressing on his shoulders. He turned to the assembly, his gaze moving from one face to the next. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, his voice calm but firm, the time for debate has ended. Prepare for war. Harrigan was the first to respond. I'll have the fleet on full alert within the hour. Good, Garfield said, nodding. Dr. Joseph, I need a full readiness report on our quantum ship fleet and the Nexus program by tomorrow. Joseph nodded but added, we're still in the testing phase for the Nexus weapon. Deploying it prematurely could save Earth, Garfield interrupted, his tone leaving no room for argument. Joseph hesitated but eventually nodded. Understood. The room began to clear as officers and scientists rushed to their tasks, leaving Garfield standing alone for a moment. His mind raced through the scenarios, weighing the odds. He knew they were slim, but slim was better than nothing. As he left the chamber, he found Admiral Harrigan waiting for him by the exit. Tom, Harrigan said, his voice low, we're looking at a fight we might not win. Garfield met his old friend's gaze, his expression hardening. Then we'll make sure the Empire remembers it for centuries. Harrigan nodded, his jaw tightening. What's the first move? Full mobilization, Garfield said. And send a message to every colony and allied world. If Earth stands alone, we'll still stand. But if others have suffered under the Empire's boot, it's time they join the fight. As the two men stepped out into the cold Geneva night, the stars above seemed impossibly distant. But Tom Garfield didn't look up. He was focused on the horizon, where the countdown to humanity's greatest challenge had already begun. Beneath the silvery dust of the moon's surface, hidden within a labyrinth of reinforced bunkers and tunnels, humanity's war machine roared to life. Earth's top military minds and brightest scientists converge at the Lunar Defense Command, their purpose singular, survival. Admiral John Harrigan stood at the edge of the observation deck, overlooking the cavernous hangar. Below, engineers swarmed over sleek, angular spacecraft. The Quantum-class destroyers gleamed under the artificial lighting, their hulls radiating an iridescent sheen that hinted at the experimental quantum materials embedded within. Harrigan's expression was unreadable, his weathered face betraying neither hope nor despair. Admiral, a crisp voice interrupted. Tom Garfield approached, his tailored black uniform immaculate despite the chaos. He carried an air of unshakable confidence, though Harrigan knew better than to mistake it for arrogance. Garfield, Harrigan greeted. The fleet's being prepped, but we're cutting it close. We're talking about facing an armada 100 times our size. We'll need more than ships if we're going to pull this off. That's why I brought him. Garfield gestured to the figure trailing him. Dr. Eli Joseph stepped into the light, a compact tablet in hand. His sharp, hawkish features mirrored the intensity in his voice. Gentlemen, our quantum ships aren't just fast, they're unpredictable. The Empire's fleet operates with centralized coordination. Disrupt their cohesion, and their numerical advantage crumbles. Harrigan arched an eyebrow. And how exactly do you propose we disrupt an empire's worth of ships? Joseph tapped his tablet, projecting a holographic schematic of the Nexus weapon. The design was both beautiful and terrifying, a spherical lattice of pulsing energy conduits surrounding a quantum core. The Nexus weapon, Joseph explained, is a device capable of creating localized quantum distortions. Think of it as a controlled black hole, activated near their fleet and their systems. Engines, weapons, communications will collapse under the strain. Harrigan frowned. Controlled black hole? Sounds like playing with fire. More like holding a match while surrounded by gasoline, Joseph admitted. The weapon's not fully tested. Deploying it could work spectacularly, or destroy us in the process. Garfield interjected, his voice firm. It's a risk we'll have to take. If the Empire breaks through Earth's defenses, there won't be anyone left to worry about collateral damage. Harrigan nodded reluctantly. Fine. Let's prioritize finalizing the Nexus. But we'll need more than one card up our sleeve. As they walked toward the central command room, the faint hum of activity filled the corridors. Technicians calibrated quantum jump systems, soldiers ran drills, and pilots prepared for simulations. In a nearby training bay, Captain Nathan Ryder was barking orders to a group of young pilots. Ryder was everything Harrigan was not: bold, brash, and unyieldingly charismatic. His striking features and easy grin belied the steel in his resolve. "Listen up," Ryder called out, pacing before his squadron. "The quantum fighters aren't toys. You jump wrong, you end up as space dust. You panic, and the Empire gets a shiny new trophy. But if you stick to the training, if you trust yourselves, we'll send them running back to whatever black hole they crawled out of." The group laughed nervously, but Ryder's confidence was infectious. One pilot raised his hand. "What if we're outnumbered?" Ryder smirked. "Outnumbered? Kid, that's just another word for target-rich environment. Now get in the sims. I want everyone pulling perfect warp-jump maneuvers by morning." Harrigan watched the exchange through the glass partition, his expression softening slightly. "Ryder's got spirit. Let's hope it rubs off on the rest of them." "It's not just spirit we'll need," Garfield replied. "We need coordination, discipline, and above all, the element of surprise. Which brings me to our next issue." Garfield turned to Joseph. "We've intercepted communications suggesting a potential spy within our ranks. Someone feeding information to the Empire." Joseph stiffened. "Any suspects?" "Not yet," Garfield said. "But we're keeping the investigation tight. The fewer people know, the better. If the Empire learns about the Nexus weapon, we'll lose our only edge." Harrigan's jaw tightened. "A traitor in the middle of this? Perfect. Just what we needed." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Commander Owen Blake. The tactical officer's calm demeanor was a welcome contrast to the tension in the room. "Admiral, Ambassador, Doctor," Blake greeted. "We've finished running the latest simulations. The results are mixed. If the Empire commits less than half its fleet to the first engagement, we can hold the line. Anything more, and we'll be overwhelmed. Then we ensure they don't bring their full force," Garfield said, his tone heroic. "We divide and conquer. Ryder squadrons will spearhead a hit-and-run campaign to bait out smaller detachments. Harrigan's destroyers will hold key positions, forcing the Empire to split its focus. And when the moment is right, we unleash the Nexus," Joseph finished grimly. Blake nodded but hesitated. "There's one more thing. Morale among the troops is shaky. They know the odds aren't in our favor." "I'll handle that," Garfield said. An hour later, in the vast assembly hall of the lunar base, Tom Garfield stood before the gathered forces of Earth. Thousands of soldiers, pilots, and engineers stood at attention, their faces a mix of determination and fear. Garfield stepped onto the podium, his voice amplified but steady. "Men and women of Earth, you've been told the odds. You've seen the size of the threat we face. I won't lie to you. This will not be an easy fight, but humanity has never chosen the easy path." He paused, letting the words sink in. "We've been underestimated, oppressed, and challenged before. And every time we've risen, every time we've endured, and this time will be no different. They think they can break us with their numbers, their technology, their arrogance. Let them come. We will show them that Earth does not kneel." The hall erupted in cheers, the sound reverberating through the base like a battle cry. Harrigan, standing in the wings, allowed himself a rare smile. As the troops dispersed, Garfield turned to Harrigan and Joseph. "That should buy us some time. Let's make sure we use it wisely." The three men walked back toward the command center, the hum of preparations growing louder around them. Somewhere, deep within the base, the Nexus weapon pulsed faintly, as if sensing the approaching storm. The countdown to war continued. The void of space shimmered with the haunting beauty of distant stars, their light fractured by the sleek hulls of Earth's fleet. 85 ships, an armada forged from desperation and ingenuity, held position at the edge of Earth's defensive perimeter. Beyond them, the Empire's fleet emerged from hyperspace, their arrival a tidal wave of menace. Admiral John Harrigan stood on the bridge of the EFS Heroic, his expression carved from stone. Around him, officers worked with practiced efficiency, their voices steady despite the enormity of the threat. now looming before them. "Report," Harrigan ordered. Lieutenant Commander Decker, his tactical officer, leaned over a console. "The Empire's fleet is massive, sir. Initial count shows over 1,000 vessels, including at least 4 Dreadnought-class ships. Their lead vessel appears to be the Kronos." Harrigan didn't flinch. "And their formation?" "They're spreading wide," Decker replied. "They're trying to encircle us, cut off any retreat." Harrigan allowed a grim smile. "Good. Let them think we're cornered." He turned to the comms officer. "Patch me through to the fleet." Moments later, his voice echoed across the comm channels. "This is Admiral Harrigan. You've trained for this moment. You've prepared for this day. The Empire believes their numbers make them invincible. Let's show them what it means to face humanity. All ships, prepare to engage." The fleet came alive. Engines flared as the quantum ships moved into their assigned positions, their movements precise and deliberate. Among them, Captain Nathan Ryder's fighter squadron streaked forward, their smaller, nimbler vessels designed for lightning-fast assaults. On the EFS Firefly, Ryder sat in the cockpit of his quantum fighter, his gloved hands steady on the controls. "All right, people," he said into his comm, "stick to your training. Hit them hard, hit them fast, and keep moving. No heroics unless I say so. Let's give them something to remember us by." The first wave of Empire ships closed the distance, their massive forms bristling with weapons. Earth ships opened fire, a barrage of energy blasts and railgun slugs lighting up the blackness. The Empire responded in kind, their advanced weaponry ripping through the void with terrifying precision. The heroics shuddered as enemy fire glanced off its shields. "Shields holding at 78%, Decker reported. "Focus fire on their lead frigates," Harrigan commanded. "Weaken their formation." As Earth's fleet executed the Admiral's orders, Ryder's squadron dived into the fray. Quantum fighters darted around the hulking Empire ships, their warp capabilities allowing them to blink in and out of existence, confusing enemy targeting systems. "Ryder, target their shield generators," came Harrigan's voice over the comm. "Copy that," Ryder replied. "Squadron, form up on me. We're going in." The fighters weaved through the chaos, dodging enemy fire with astonishing agility. Ryder spotted his target, a shield generator mounted on the flank of an Empire destroyer. "Lock on," he commanded. A synchronized volley of missiles streaked toward the generator, detonating in a brilliant explosion. The destroyer's shields flickered and failed, leaving it vulnerable. Seconds later, a barrage from the EFS Vanguard tore through its hull, sending the massive ship into oblivion. Ryder allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction before his sensors screamed a warning. "Enemy fighters incoming." A swarm of Empire fighters descended upon them, their sleek designs bristling with weaponry. Ryder's squadron scattered, engaging in a deadly game of cat and mouse. "Hold your positions," Ryder barked. "We've got this." Meanwhile, on the heroic, Harrigan watched the battle unfold on the tactical display. The Empire's sheer numbers were taking their toll. Several Earth ships had already been lost, their icons blinking out on the screen. "Admiral, the Kronos is moving into firing range," Decker warned. Harrigan's eyes narrowed. Time to bring out the surprise. He turned to the communications officer. "Activate the Nexus weapon." Deep within the bowels of the heroic, Dr. Eli Joseph oversaw the activation of the Nexus weapon. The spherical device pulsed with energy, its quantum core glowing with an eerie blue light. "Initializing Nexus," Joseph announced. "Brace for distortion." The weapon fired, releasing a ripple of quantum energy that expanded outward like a shockwave. When it hit the Empire fleet, the results were immediate and catastrophic. Ships lost power, their systems failing as they were enveloped by the quantum distortion. Engines sputtered, weapons went offline, and chaos rippled through their formations. On the bridge of the Kronos, Imperator Thraxius bellowed in rage. "What is this trickery?" Back on the heroic, Harrigan seized the moment. "All ships, focus fire on their disabled vessels." Now, Earth's fleet moved with surgical precision, exploiting the disruption caused by the Nexus. Ryder's squadron pressed the advantage, taking out multiple enemy fighters and harassing larger ships. But the victory was far from certain. The Empire's dreadnoughts began to recover, their advanced systems adapting to the disruption. The Kronos unleashed a barrage of firepower, devastating several Earth ships in a single volley. Admiral, the Nexus is losing effectiveness. Joseph warned over the comm. They're adapting faster than we anticipated. Harrigan clenched his fists. Then we adapt faster. Redirect all remaining fighters to cover the heroic. We're making a final push. As Ryder's squadron moved to defend the flagship, a warning blared through his cockpit. An enemy cruiser was targeting the heroic. Not on my watch, Ryder growled. Squadron, with me. The fighters launched a desperate assault on the cruiser, weaving through its defenses to deliver crippling strikes. Ryder's ship took a hit, alarms blaring as his systems began to fail. Ryder, pull back, one of his pilots shouted. Not yet, Ryder replied, steering his damaged ship toward the cruiser's bridge. I've got one more trick up my sleeve. He armed his remaining missiles and aimed directly at the cruiser's command deck. For Earth, he whispered before firing. The missiles struck true, detonating in a massive explosion that tore the cruiser apart. Ryder's ship vanished in the blast, his sacrifice buying the heroic precious seconds. On the heroic, Harrigan bowed his head briefly before snapping back to command. All ships, fall back to defensive positions. We've done enough for today. As Earth's fleet retreated, battered but not broken, Thraxius appeared on the heroic's main screen. His expression was a mask of fury. This is not over, Earthlings, he snarled. Reinforcements are coming, and when they arrive, your defiance will end. Harrigan stared back, unflinching. We'll be waiting. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. In the aftermath of the battle, the surviving crew of the fleet began assessing their losses. Ryder's sacrifice weighed heavily on all of them, but his bravery had bought Earth another chance. As Harrigan turned to his officers, his voice was steady. Prepare for the next engagement. This was only the beginning. The Earth loomed behind its battered fleet, a blue and green jewel suspended in the void, fragile yet defiant. The remnants of humanity's armada hovered in a tight formation, shields flickering and hulls scarred. The respite from battle was brief. On the far edge of the solar system, the Empire's reinforcements emerged from hyperspace, a colossal wave of warships that blotted out the stars. Admiral Harrigan stood on the bridge of the EFS Heroic, his shoulders squared despite the overwhelming odds. The bridge crew worked in tense silence, every screen showing the incoming fleet. The Heroic had been damaged in the last battle, but it still served as the nerve center for Earth's resistance. How long until they were within firing range? Harrigan asked. 15 minutes, replied Lieutenant Commander Decker, his voice taut. Scans indicate at least 2,000 ships, including 6 dreadnoughts. Their lead vessel is still the Kronos. Harrigan's jaw tightened. The Kronos was more than a ship. It was a symbol of imperial dominance. Destroying it was their only hope of breaking the Empire's will. Prepare all ships for defensive formations, Harrigan ordered, and bring the Nexus weapon online. It's our last card. In the weapons bay, Dr. Eli Joseph and his team worked feverishly to stabilize the Nexus weapon. The quantum core pulsed erratically, the strain of previous engagements pushing it to its limits. Dr. Joseph, came Harrigan's voice over the comm. What's our status? Joseph wiped sweat from his brow. The Nexus is functional, but barely. We might get one more activation before the core destabilizes. After that, he trailed off, not needing to state the obvious. Understood, Harrigan replied. Make it count. As the Empire fleet drew closer, Tom Garfield stepped onto the bridge, his expression grim but heroic. We've broadcast evacuation protocols to Earth. Civilian bunkers are online, but if the Empire breaks through... They won't, Harrigan interrupted. Garfield studied the Admiral. You believe that... I have to, Harrigan said simply. Garfield nodded, his respect for the Admiral deepening. Then let's give them hell. The first volleys of fire erupted as the Empire ships entered range. Earth's fleet opened up with everything they had, beams of energy and projectiles streaking across the void. The Empire responded in kind, their firepower devastatingly precise. The heroic shuddered under the impact of a direct hit. Shields at 45%. Decker reported. Redirect auxiliary power, Harrigan commanded. Across the fleet, Earth's ships fought fireflyly, their smaller numbers offset by daring tactics. Quantum fighters executed precision strikes, exploiting the Empire's cumbersome formations. The heroic led the charge, its railguns targeting the Empire's frigates with ruthless efficiency. But the tide of battle was turning. Earth's losses mounted, their fleet dwindling against the Empire's overwhelming force. In the chaos, the Kronos pressed forward, its weapons carving a path of destruction. Admiral, Decker said urgently, the Kronos is targeting the heroic. We won't survive a direct hit from its main cannon. Harrigan's mind raced. Bring the Nexus weapon to full power. Target the Kronos. Sir, Joseph's voice crackled over the comm. If we activate the Nexus at this proximity, the distortion could destroy the heroic as well. Harrigan's gaze hardened. We don't have a choice. Begin the countdown. The Nexus weapon began to hum, its energy building to a crescendo. On the Kronos, Imperator Thraxius watched the Earth fleet with contempt. Futile, he muttered. Destroy them all. As the Nexus reached critical charge, a squadron of Empire fighters broke through Earth's defenses, targeting the heroic. Enemy fighters inbound. Decker shouted. Before Harrigan could react, a familiar voice crackled over the comm. This is Captain Ryder's squadron. We've got your back. Gasps echoed on the bridge. Ryder's fighter had been presumed lost in the first battle, but now he and a handful of surviving pilots streaked toward the heroic. Ryder, Harrigan barked. What are you doing? Finishing what we started, sir, Ryder replied, his tone calm. We'll clear a path for the Nexus. Ryder's squadron engaged the enemy fighters with unmatched ferocity, their ships moving with impossible precision. Ryder himself targeted the lead fighter, his missiles striking true and sending it spiraling into the void. Countdown at 10 seconds, Joseph announced. The Kronos began to charge its main cannon, aiming directly at the heroic. On the bridge, Harrigan issued his final order. All ships, retreat to safe distance. This is the heroic's fight now. The Nexus weapon unleashed its quantum pulse, a blinding wave of energy that enveloped the Kronos. Its shields buckled, its hull fracturing as the distortion ripped through its systems. The Kronos erupted in a cataclysmic explosion, its debris scattering into the void. The shockwave from the Nexus tore through the surrounding Empire ships, disabling dozens and forcing the rest to retreat. The heroic was caught in the blast, its hull groaning under the strain. On the bridge, Harrigan gripped the console as sparks flew around him. Status report. Severe damage across all systems, Decker replied. But we're holding. Cheers erupted across the fleet as the remaining Empire ships fled, their morale shattered by the loss of the Kronos. Humanity had won the day, but at a terrible cost. As the battered heroic limped back toward Earth, Harrigan stood in silence, his thoughts on the sacrifices made. Ryder's fighter had not returned, and many others had given their lives to protect their home. In the quiet of the bridge, Garfield approached. We did it, he said softly. For now, Harrigan replied. The Empire will be back, and when they come, we'll be ready. The Earth shone brighter than ever as the fleet returned, a beacon of resilience in the dark expanse of space. Humanity's last stand had become its finest hour.